Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Hipsters podcast, where I interview founders and co founders, entrepreneurs and artists, executives and stay at home hipsters in crypto and blockchain around the world. And I have an amazing podcast for you today. Let's get to it. Today, I have an amazing guest. His name is Ken Folan. He is the co-owner, the Kildare Gallery at Carton House. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jamil.
You're welcome. Pleasure to have you. Let me kick things off and ask you first, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
My background was I was actually a pipe fitter and plumber, and I did a lot of welding. And that doesn't sound like it would apply to what I do, but it actually turned out to be very helpful. When I left school, I did a trade and I became a plumber. And that was a 4-year long trade. And pretty much the day I finished my trade, I got on a plane and I moved to Australia, and I ended up living there for about 12 years. So for the first year I worked as a plumber over there, and I hated plumbing. The day I started it, I hated it, but I just said I would complete the trade, so I'd always have something to fall back on. And I moved to Australia, worked at plumbing over there, and then I moved into a share house over there, and that's where things really started to take a different avenue for me. So this was an old house, and there was about 10 people living there, and they were all artists and musicians. And when I was younger, I used to play the guitar, and I was quite good at it. And I just got really inspired by being around these people. And there was a music college over there called the Australian Institute of Music, and I decided I would apply for it. And I was very lucky, and I did a performance, and I got in, and I was playing bass back then, and I was absolutely obsessed with it. And one of my flatmates, he was a bass player as well, so he really inspired me, and he was great for recommending new types of music to listen to, and just really, really helpful. So that set me off on a different track. And the house I was living in, it used to be a wartime, I think it was a naval base, and it was designed to look like a house and not like a military building. And that was for World War II, but it was on a cliff, and I mean it was absolutely beautiful place. And so that house was a huge part in really sort of shaping what I wanted to do. And one of the girls in the house, she was an artist. Her name is Fiona Lowry, and she's a renowned Australian artist. She became hugely successful. She won a couple of awards, the Doug Moran Award and the Archibald Prize. And each of those, the first prize, I think it's $100,000 for each of them. So it's a huge prize. So I was always around people like that. And I was living in Sydney, and there's a sculpture exhibition every year in Sydney called Sculpture by the Sea. And what it is it's huge sculptures placed all along the sea near Bondi Beach, Coogee Beach, Tamarama Beach. And I'd never seen anything like it. I was just absolutely amazed by it. And that got me interested in sculpture, really. So I lived in Australia for 12 years. I studied music over there, got into the Australian Institute of Music, and I ended up playing in a lot of different bands. And I was playing in some wedding bands as well. And it's playing music for a living. It's hard because some weeks you have work, you get paid, and then you have 2 weeks where you don't have work. But anyway, so I was there for about 12 years, and I moved back to Ireland. And I moved back in the middle of a recession, and there was no work at all. And even trying to get plumbing work, there wasn't any work. So I was actually on the dole for a while, and there was pretty much nothing else to do. So I did a business and entrepreneur course. The government were putting on all these courses to get people into work, and that was in Dún Laoghaire College, IADT. So I went out there and I had a business plan, and I thought I would organise a sculpture exhibition because I'd absolutely nothing to lose. So I did the whole business plan, and I was really serious about it. And I approached Carton House in Maynooth. They're a 5-star hotel now, and I just proposed to them about doing a sculpture exhibition, big pieces of sculpture dotted all around the grounds. There's 1,400 acres there, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I came to them with that idea, and they actually surprisingly bought into it and said, you can do it. And I was scared when I actually heard them say you can do it. I thought, oh God, I don't know if I've never done anything like this. I don't know if I can do it. And I just set about finding artists, and I was really, really lucky. One of the first artists I met was a guy called Mike Doohan, and he's a sculptor. And through his backing and his word, a lot of other artists then were prepared to give me their work. He said, look, this guy is trustworthy and he won't do you wrong. So people started giving me their work, and I put on this huge sculpture exhibition. It was really, really hard work. But I was lucky. I had a lot of help from a lot of different people to do it as well. So I had a double base, and I sold that to pay for catalogs, insurance, all that type of stuff. But yeah, I was really, really determined to do that. And it turned out it was a really, really big success. I made a few sales, and I'd actually wanted to do it where you could pay in Bitcoin for some of the pieces, but the facility just it wasn't there at the time. And if it was, I think I'd be a billionaire by now if people paid in Bitcoin. So that was the first exhibition, and it was a great success. And I decided to do another one, and it was the same story, but this time I went bigger. There was a lot more pieces and a lot more bigger pieces. The logistics of it was all very hard, but all of the plumbing and the pipe fitting, that all helped in regards to installation, knowing how the pieces were put together, knowing how to put something into the ground and keep it safe. It's not going to fall over. So that all helped with that. And then after that, the woman came to see me, and her name is Ruth Little, and she was also organising sculpture exhibitions. We got to talk, and we had a coffee, and I really liked Ruth, and Ruth liked me, and we got on really well. And we sort of went our different ways, and I decided I wanted to have a full-time art gallery, because I could see there was a demand out there for people wanted. I mean, I'd started to get the ball rolling with everything. I started to have a bit of demand and a couple of regular clients, but there was nowhere to keep this going, and I thought I could do this all year round. So Carton House there was a building there, and pretty much needed to be renovated on the inside. And I approached the CEO, whose name was Conor Mallahan. He was the CEO at the time, and I proposed to put an art gallery in there. And once again, they bought into the idea and said, "Yeah, okay, great." So I contacted Ruth and asked her if would she be interested in coming into business with me. And it was as simple as that. And she said, yeah. And her and her husband came along to view the building and see what sort of work needed to be done. And yeah, we just decided, let's do it. And we just started a gallery. Now, there's an awful lot of renovation had to be done on the house. And once again, the plumbing background came in handy, because I was able to do most of the work. And Ruth's husband was very handy as well. So that's pretty much how the gallery actually got open.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I have some blue collar friends who want to learn crypto. So, I started teaching them. So, that's awesome. Yeah. So let me find out first, what are your current exhibitions?
We have an exhibition running at the moment, and this is we'd never done something like this before, and it's an exhibition of NFTs, and it's by one of our artists, Jonathan Dixon. So I've been interested in cryptocurrency, and I started looking at NFTs about a year ago. I go in and out of understanding everything, and I talked with Jonathan a number of times, and Jonathan is a very, very clever guy, and he's an amazing artist. I mean, he's top shelf. So I kept saying to him, there's a number of times we'd go out for a beer. Actually, he's great company. I kept saying to him, there's definitely something in this for you. There's something in blockchain or cryptocurrency, or there's some way, because the guy is such a clever guy. I said, you could do really well out of this. And then I just sort of said to him, would you be interested in doing some type of digital art, something to do with blockchain. Then I looked into, there was NFTs, and he was just up for it straight away. So we decided, it actually started off, I said to him, I'll pay you. I paid him in Cardano because I actually bought some ADA. I was interested in Cardano. I was watching YouTube videos of Charles Hoskinson, and I found him, he just really impressed me. He comes across as, he seems to be very decent and extremely clever. And I just sort of liked everything about him, and I liked Cardano, and there seemed to be a good community there. So I paid Jonathan 5 transactions in ADA, and he created a master painting. I'm going to try and explain this properly now. He created a master painting, which is like a grid of all blocks of lovely colors that he's painted on with big, thick brush strokes. And he created an algorithm then to extract numbers from the transaction code ID, because the transaction code ID is unique. I think it might be, I don't know, 14, 16 symbols long. I can't remember. So he's extracted those numbers using this algorithm, and then he applies it to the master painting, which chooses the sequence of colors, and that creates a piece of art. And you can see them, they're all on our website. It'll make more sense if people look at it. So until the transaction takes place, until I pay for the art, it doesn't actually exist. The second the payment is made, it creates a transaction ID, which goes to the master painting, and then the master painting the algorithm decides the sequence of colors from the master painting. So that was the first part. So I paid him 5 of them. So there's 5 of those available, and he's doing an edition of them. So then we were saying that if we're going to do an NFT exhibition, it can't all be on a television screen at the gallery. When our clients come in, a lot of our clients don't understand cryptocurrency, and they don't use it. And I was trying to think, how can I pull them in to get them interested in all of this? So the screens are not going to work. So what we decided to do was, Jonathan was going to create physical pieces as well. So the transaction code ID, what the master painting created, it was a JPEG, and he's printed these, they're large pieces. I think they're 80 by 90, 80 by 100 centimeters, and they're on photographic archival paper, and they're encased in acrylic. So there's 5 of them at the gallery at the moment. They look absolutely, even if there was no NFT with them, they look absolutely amazing. And then he's created another 11, and they're not to do with the master painting. They're all different images, and they're all to do with memories and how you recreate memories in your head. And they're really, really colorful pieces. There's a few pieces of skulls that are down there, and there's beautiful colors all around them. And he then got a passport photograph of his wife, which was 20 years old. And they're on some of the pieces. That represents the memories of going on holidays, because usually when you get a passport photograph, you're usually going on holidays or somewhere like that. So there's 1 or 2 weeks of a holiday, and you, no matter what, even 20 years later, you will remember those 1 or 2 weeks. It's like a big flag in the sand for a memory. So Jonathan has created all these. They're all in physical pieces at the gallery, and there's an NFT with each of them. But what I really liked about this is that you can buy NFTs, and the cryptocurrency market there could be a huge crash, everything goes to the ground, and your NFTs, they're not worth that much money anymore. You mightn't get that, and that can be temporary. That can recover, and they're worth money after 3 or 4 years. But no matter what, you get these physical pieces with the NFT. So even if the actual value of the NFT goes through the floor, you still have this beautiful piece of art, and they're not even that expensive as well. So the physical piece, I think, will retain its value even if there's an NFT crash. So I hope that sort of explains what the exhibition is about.
No, it's great. Thank you. No, awesome. So, the interesting thing about your art is that exhibition is that art is really presented in a public place, right? And you said art in a public place can play an important role in urban regeneration, right? So, how does it do that? And what have been some success stories with urban regeneration and art?
I think sculpture can breathe new life into a place. I think when you put in like we did a commission for Intel. Intel put a sculpture into a town that's near us called Leixlip, and they did it for the Tidy Towns. And Tidy Towns is a committee of volunteers that on a Saturday morning they go around, they clean up lots of rubbish, they plant nice plants, they make the area look really nice. So Intel helped out and they commissioned a sculpture, and it's a sculpture of there's four big butterflies, and they're beautiful. They're all different. They're all different colors, and the butterfly is a symbol of I think it's a symbol of change and new beginnings. Um, so Intel, we actually had I think it's a microchip or processor. Anyways, all of the lines on it, they're all like Intel symbol. They're all on the plinth, and it adds so much to the area. And children love sculpture, and I think children like sculpture more than paintings because it's some of it can look like a big toy. They're used to playing with little cars and dolls and whatever it is, and they can get up close, they can touch it, they climb all over it. So it's sculpture seems to resonate with children, and I think that piece in Leixlip was a great success. Actually, it was really, really. I think it really, really adds a lot to the area, I suppose. But we've worked on a number of different projects as well. We've over COVID as well. There's a lot of companies lost people to COVID, and some of their friends and family died, and we've had companies commission a piece, and once again it was actually butterflies again that we put in, but it was just to commemorate the people who died over COVID, and they're placed nicely in a garden, and people can go there and it's peaceful, and they get something out of the sculpture, I think. So I think that was really important as well.
Awesome. So, you also have a bespoke commissioning service, right? What
Yes.
is that all about? How's that work? I know there's broke, woke, and bespoke. I know what broke is. I think I know what woke is. I don't know what bespoke is. So what is that? What is your service all about?
Just the bespoke commissions are recently as well. A lot of them, like I was saying, they've been memorials, and even before COVID as well, there's people who've lost loved ones, and it could be a tragic event, and it might be 2 to 3 years later, and that's when they can actually cope with. They want to get a sculpture to sculpture as a memorial for a loved one that they've lost. And we did one recently, and it was a couple, and they lost a young daughter, and stuff like that I take very seriously, because someone comes to you, they're looking for a memorial piece, and you have to come up with an idea or a concept for them, and something that works for them. And you want to treat it with absolute and utter respect. You want to get everything right. You don't want to get it wrong at the end, because you can really upset or hurt someone. So it was a beautiful piece, anyways. And what it was it was a hand with a butterfly coming off it, and the hand was to represent the mother's hand, and the butterfly was the young child. But there comes a stage, like we come up with the concept, you hand it over to an artist, and there's those couple of weeks where it's being made, and you're worried yourself that will it be okay, and will everything turn out all right. You have to hand it over to the artist, and I don't think we've got it wrong yet. Like every time we've done it, people are really, really delighted. But it can be a huge part in healing for someone as well, to get a piece like that, I suppose. So that's one part that we've been doing a lot of bespoke commissions. We also work with companies. It can be something to do with, like we did one once again for Intel, and Jonathan Dixon, the artist who we have at the moment at the gallery, he was the one that did it, and it was a portrait of Gordon Moore, and Gordon Moore was one of the founders of Intel. So what Jonathan did was he did a painting, and it's all pixelated, and it's all painted in small blocks. So when you're up close to it, it's hard to tell what it is, and then when you stand back, the picture of Gordon Moore appears. I mean, it's absolutely it's hanging in Intel at the moment, and it's absolutely amazing. And it was all to represent how the same thing can exist in two different states at the same time. So it was pixelated and then realistic when you pull back. So that's the sort of stuff that we do at the gallery. I mean, we'll always try and do our absolute best to get the best outcome for our client.
So it seems like you do a lot of work with butterflies. What are they? What are they?
People love butterflies.
What do they symbolize to you?
Symbolize to me butterflies. I don't know, but like butterflies is weird because my auntie died a few years ago, and at the funeral, a butterfly was flying around her coffin, and that really resonated with my mom. It was my mom's sister, and that really resonated with her. And recently, a good friend of mine, his father passed away, and we were at the funeral, and same thing, a butterfly came out of nowhere and was flying around the coffin, and then it flew out the door. So I don't know. A butterfly to me, I think it symbolizes change and new beginnings. That's what I get from it, anyways.
Got it. Yeah, I'm thinking. I like that. So you mentioned NFTs, right?
Yes.
And your traditional gallery. How have they impacted, traditional galleries and your business and other businesses like yours?
At the moment, I don't think it started to impact them yet. Like, this is the first time we did something like this. I've always been interested, but we've never done it. And I think it actually is going to, I think the traditional art and the NFTs, they are going to come an awful lot closer. I think it'll be good there's artists work. If, let's say, if you buy a piece of sculpture off, I'm an artist, you buy a piece off me and it's 10,000 euros. You sell it at an auction a year later and get 20,000 euros for it, because that happens. I mean, an artist can be a good investment. I'm supposed to get an artist resale commission. I think it's approximately 4 or 5%, but a lot of times that doesn't seem to happen. Like, I actually don't know any artists that have received. So I'm sure some auction houses do honor that, but I've never heard of an artist actually getting paid that. So with the NFTs, you can program in an artist resale percentage of, let's say, 5%. So every time that changes hands, it automatically goes to the artist's wallet. I'm right at that, aren't I? So I think that's that's only a small part of NFTs, but I think that adds huge value to it, that every time that piece of art changes hands, the artist is going to get paid their artist resale rights. It's like a royalty, I suppose. And even when they're dead, like every time that goes, it'll still go to their wallets, so their family or their family estate will get it. I think NFTs will add value as well in regards to any counterfeit art. So sometimes when a sculpture is made, there might be 6 or maybe 9 copies of that one piece. It's an edition of 9. When the 9th one is made, the mold for the sculpture should be destroyed, so no more can be made. So you've bought a piece thinking that there's only 9 in this collection and you own one of them. But it's very possible for somebody to take that sculpture somewhere and get a mold made of it and take it to a metalworking foundry and get the piece remade and basically recast, and will look the same. And not a lot of people will know that's counterfeit. But if those sculptures in the first place, if each of them came with an NFT, if they don't have the NFT with them, I mean, the sculpture is a fake then.
Because NFT is a digital receipt. Yeah, I agree.
I just think that takes a huge amount of risk out of consumers. Like, for a person buying a piece, I think that takes a huge amount of risk out, that they know there can be only 9 of these made if it comes with an NFT.
Yeah, because a lot of people think the NFT is the artwork and not the digital receipt behind the artwork. So,
but I'm still trying to figure out the whole thing. But the more and more I think about it, and the more I'm starting, like, organizing this exhibition, I can see more and more ways that it's going to be of use in the art world, and the art world especially. And and for collectors as well. Just I think it'll become a hugely important part of art.
Yeah, how will it? What are the ways?
Well, I think in the ways what I was saying of helping to stamp out any counterfeit pieces. Do you know, they're the only two ways at the moment that have been going through my head. But just the more and more I think about it, I know I'm going to see a lot more uses for it in the future for NFTs. I know there's an awful lot of people around and a lot of art critics as well, and they don't like NFTs. And I'm thinking if they don't like it, they haven't given it much. They mightn't have given it much thought or much research into it, or they mightn't have used cryptocurrencies, because we sold a few of Jonathan Dixon's paintings. We sold them to some people in America, and we got them. They actually paid in Cardano, in ADA, and the transaction was so smooth. Like when they pay it, like by the time you refresh your screen, the currency is in your wallet. I sold a piece of sculpture a few years ago, and it went to New Zealand, and I think the piece was about €2,500, and I got the person paid with PayPal, and I paid about €200 to PayPal in fees, and the money wasn't released for, I think it was like 10 days until we actually got the money in our bank account. But when we got paid in Cardano, it was there in a second, and the fees, like there was barely a fee. It might have been €1 or something tiny like that. So I think that's hugely helpful to any artists and any galleries selling work that's going abroad, or you can stamp out all the transaction fees and have your money available straight away. So that was really good.
It is. Sounds good. So, I have actually, I have two final questions. First of all,
Yep.
I asked this one because I used to have gardens until I had all kinds of like critters in my yard that I can't manage, like deer, badgers, woodchucks, squirrels, you name it. But what's the role of gardening? What do you think? Why is it beneficial? Why is it important? And why is it important to maintain the integrity of the sculptures in the gardens, from a personal and societal perspective?
I think, especially since COVID, people were spending an awful lot more time in their gardens. They're prepared to spend a bit of money on their gardens, and they got into gardening. Gardening is very therapeutic. And adding a sculpture to a garden as well, it becomes a focal point in the garden. We do a sculpture exhibition in Ireland. We were doing it every year. We're doing it this year in June bank holiday weekend in the Phoenix Park, and it's called Bloom. It's a garden show. It's similar to the Chelsea Flower Show. So we'd get 100,000 people through in 5 days, and what we do is we build a garden, and it's a sculpture garden. So we might have 70 to 100 pieces of sculpture placed all over the garden. And anyone who buys sculptures, I go and I install them, and I get to see their gardens, and people love their gardens, and they're prepared to spend a bit of money. They're prepared to spend a bit of money and put a nice sculpture in. They're going to have it forever. And sometimes people will buy a sculpture and put one in, and then they want another one and another one, and we help out with that. Like we will go and we'll try and pick more sculptures for them. Like we recently put a few sculptures into somebody's garden, and they were more a classical style of sculpture, figurative pieces, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And it was like two people dancing like ballet, and they were up on a plinth. It was maybe 6 foot high. It was absolutely gorgeous, but it added a sense of calmness to the garden. Or like when I looked at them when I was put in, I could nearly hear classical music playing. But I just think that now people are spending an awful lot more time, and people after COVID as well had a lot of spare change in their pockets, and they were prepared to spend and they were buying sculptures for the garden. So I think it's important to have a piece of sculpture in your garden, and it can introduce you. Then you get a nice collection together, and you can have indoor sculptures, outdoor sculptures. Lighting is important as well at night time. If you can have a nice light on a sculpture, because in Ireland we get a lot of dark nights. So when you can look at your window and see a beautiful piece lit up, you'll get to enjoy it all year round. But yeah, so like we have that show coming up, and the amount of people that are interested in their gardens and interested in sculpture, like you wouldn't believe it. I've had people buy pieces in a very small garden, and the piece could be 20,000 euros, and they're prepared to spend that type of money, and it's a beautiful piece. They're prepared to spend that type of money and have a piece in their garden. So they're not all huge, enormous gardens. Sorry, and I should mention as well, so just to go back to the NFTs, we opened that exhibition on Saturday, and we were very, very lucky. John Woods, he works for IOHK Cardano. I think he's the head architect of engineering there. I think that's his title. He actually lives in Dublin, and he came along and opened the exhibition. And we had a crew of people who live in Dublin, Kildare, Meath. They actually work for IOHK as well, and they all came along to the exhibition, which was fantastic. So
That's great. Awesome.
yeah.
So I want to thank you very much for your time today. I enjoyed speaking with you. It's great learning about your background and all the great stuff you're up to. It's awesome. And my last question is this: how can people find out more information about you, about your gallery, about your exhibitions, sculptures? How can they do any of that?
They can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter seems to be the best spot for people who are interested in cryptocurrencies and NFT. I've found it fantastic, actually. And we have a website, www.thekildaregallery.ie. And I'm constantly putting posts up on Twitter and social media. So just follow us on there.
Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks very much, Jamil.